Alrighty, so we're back here on the camp. It's been a busy couple months. Started here in like February or March working, and pretty sure I've worked like 16-hour days every day since. A lot of other people here helping, do things as well. So it's just been really busy. We've got a lot done. We're gonna take you around today and show you a lot of the food plots and hunting stuff that's coming together. This right here is where we were standing talking about building, and as you can see, old Dozer Doug's been on the equipment here, and every day I come back here, it's more and more of a view. But got a lot of these trees out. It started to bring the grade down, and I think he must have been chilly today in the 1,000-degree Illinois heat, so he started a fire down there. But we cut some of the valuable trees off here first, and the guys drug tops down. I used the crawler and stacked them down there and cleaned it up, in the first place. I got a bunch of huge root balls I'm going to reach out and put as fish structure right here on the point. So all this dirt is going to end up in this holler here, and there's just going to be kind of a high spot out here, and this side would be a walkout, I guess. And but one of the things I've been thinking of doing is terracing a couple hatchery ponds, like little 10th acre ponds, kind of terracing them down through there, and that way they're lower. It's one of the few places I can put them lower grade, so I don't have as high to pump water. And I'll just pump water from here up, and it'll shoot into each one of the hatchery ponds, so it's always putting water in, and then each one of them will have an overflow in the center that will let the water in and down under and under all the ponds back out. So it'll always recirculate all the crap and junk in the water from the fish to keep it clean, and they'll have surface aerators. And then when I want to drain those fish down, I just pop that overflow pipe out, and it'll suck them down into the pond. So I'm thinking, as of right now, maybe put a couple of those right there, because we're already doing the dirt work and the pipe is cheap. So over here on the Levee side, I actually got the old sprayer out and I sprayed it. That was fun and exciting and treacherous. But I got that killed, and I'll let it come again, and then this September or whatever, I'll hit it again and really kill all that cool season stuff that comes. And I'm gonna actually frost seed that switchgrass, just because I don't want to get on that with a tractor, and there's a lot of stuff I'll miss when the planter comes up or the drill. So anyway, I'm gonna frost seed all that into switch, and that way I don't have to mow that levee. I can just keep her burned. All right, so this field here, the challenge on this awesome field, really appealing hedgerow break up there, where obviously there's old tree stands and everything, but it's just kind of tough to hunt because our west winds are blowing into all this really good hillside structure here. So right now, the guys have been logging that entire hillside, and the way that I marked it is I just kind of select cut the trees that were ready to go. But then as I was walking, I was finding where they're bedding naturally on these tips and these southeast facing points and these south facing hillsides within all of that easterly facing stuff. And then any tree that I could sell or market, I marked, reds and blacks and hickories and everything in there. So there's little mini, clear cuts kind of where the deer are wanting to bed anyway. And what my plan is, because all these west winds kind of go into all that, so this edge over here, it kind of runs, northwest to southeast. So with the northwest, the wind's blowing right down that line, and the lake happens to be right behind it. So, and that's a peninsula. I call that my peninsula cornfield. So what I did was I built this electric fence, and it goes that way and it goes out into the lake. When it was frozen, I used an ice auger hole and pounded posts in there. And then on that side, it goes out into a cove, and it goes out into the water too. So I'll leave my house and I'll come up around the peninsula, and I'll park right there at the bottom of the hill, and I'll just walk right up that trail I cleared for the electric fence. And it's only about 50 yards down there, and I'll get right into the back of a blind. There's a gut right there. So my blind will have landscaping fabric around the legs. It'll only be 4 feet in the air, and I got a trap door. So I'll go down, nothing in this field will see me. I'll get right in the ditch, and I'll go down to my boat and leave. And those really good nights where the deer I'm after is likely to be out here in daylight, if I get a northwest or north-northwest or even straight north, I should be okay. At least I'm not blowing in his bedding area, and our blinds are scent free, so even if it gets wonky, he's not gonna get me, and the thermal should pull behind me towards that water. And then I shaped this electric fence in a way, you know, that funnels them in there. And I've got beans planted in the back there too. I got a ½ acre of soybeans in the back of that corn. So I'm using that to kind of drag them into a pinch. Now out here, I don't care about the huntability because I'm gonna drag them over there with the corn. So out here, the strategy was, how do I get everything a big deer wants? How do I get 60–70% perennial green in this area? So right here, I split it. I did clover this way, and I did alfalfa this way. And we just baled it for the first time. We got all this, you know, nice grass coming. I planted it with oats, and I'm getting ready tomorrow to hit it with clef and crop oil, smoke those weeds, and it is gonna be nice. So we got like all it, you know, right here is probably, I don't know, 3 acres of perennial green, beats the droughts. You know, the corn and beans beat the droughts. I got beans on that side of my 2-track. And that was partially done because I knew we were gonna be logging and tearing stuff up. So I just wanted to put something there. I wanted beans because I want them to have beans on the farm in the summer. And, you know, I was like, if they don't amount to much, I don't really care. I'm just gonna disc them in, and I'm gonna plant brassicas and cereal grain plots over there. So I think there'll be some beans left anywhere they hurt during the logging project, like right here. I'll just go and plant, you know, some fall stuff into there. But I don't really care. I just want them to have a smorgasbord out here. I don't really care about the strategy because my strategy in this field is right there. I'm going to pull those deer into that cornfield right there, period. All right, we're here in this field. It's basically one field south of the Peninsula field. I call this the arrow field because the first time I came here, I found an arrow in the field. So I figured that was a good way to identify it. So this one, I come in from the south, and I basically come around the edge of the corn, and there'll be a blind right there. And this corn, the reason that I shaped it instead of going straight across, the reason it's shaped like this is because the best rut hunting funnel in the woods on the east side of the lake is right there, just to the south of the end of the fence. And I got a stand up there, and then there's another stand about, you know, 40–50 yards from it down into the woods, and that stands for an easterly wind, and you actually use the boat to get to it. This one, you'd come up the edge of that corn. This would be a great one of those days, you know, slip in at 8–9 o'clock in the morning and hunt till 2–3 o'clock. So that stand you access by coming up the edge of the corn. The natural edge of that corn helps funnel traffic deer into the path that I've mowed into the woods there. And so I can get a shot out into that, you know, natural travel corridor that edge creates, and I can also get a shot to the pinch point in the wood lot there. So that's why that north line is shaped like that. And then this cove here, I did in beans. And again, you know, I might strip disc, I might till some strips in there. I didn't expect them to do so well as a small plot, but that hinder really helps to keep the deer off of it when they're young. That it's an awesome thing to use. So they look really good. I'll definitely overseed them. I might do some strips in there earlier in July so I get some bigger brassicas out there. Eventually there's a 4th well on the farm, and it's up here. Eventually I'm gonna fire that well up, and I'm gonna trench water back here. I'm gonna put another water cattle tank here, and I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna put another pivot out in that field. So there will be a circle out there of brassicas. I might even put the circle over here in my perennial and leave that, you know, for soybeans, because I kind of like the fact that I could actually get soybeans to last. So some of the stuff changes on the fly. The big picture is the same, but I think I will continue to plant beans there. I'll overseed the beans with cereal grains. I'll overseed the corn with cereal grains. I'll eventually have a circle, ½ acre circle out here in the perennial green for my fall brassica plots, and I'll have water up here. So, and it's kind of a repeating theme throughout the camp, you know, everything they want in one area, and then using that corn, which is the most powerful thing in October, which is when we want to try and kill them before they die of other causes. And so you just use that corn to pull them to you, because it's just, corn is king. Alfalfa's king, clover's king, corn is king. But there's nothing like mowed corn. So we're standing here in this hedgerow, this break in the hedgerow between these two fields. And I got a little strip of switchgrass planted right here. And then I got a strip of switchgrass planted right there. And I got one at the far end of the corn. That's to kind of screen from the road. But these two are basically, this is a really good spot. It's tough with access. Eventually, I'm probably gonna use like the hay bales or something and make like this wall from down there up and around to here to try and keep these deer out of a northwest wind. And this entire log landing back here is gonna be switchgrass. That's probably the best bedding back there in the south-facing hillside and stuff. And I just picture that becoming just like where the most mature deer over here ends up hanging, because it's kind of the best bedroom. And I could see them just coming out through the edges of this switch right here. And so I want to be able to hunt here. It's kind of really bad egress. But with an east wind, I can shoot down to the lake that way. But I put this switchgrass screen on both sides. And that way, if I do end up hunting here for some reason, I can get down and have this switch barrier on both sides of this hedgerow and I can shoot out of here. But I don't even know. I probably won't even hunt here. I won't need to hunt here, but it's just such a cool spot. Plus, I feel like it kind of makes it more secure in these fields, and it would maybe make a buck want to like check. He can't just walk through here and look out in the field. He might want to, there might be more movement through here, like a turkey, you know, like he's got to be able to see. So it might just create more movement through here. So this switch here, what I did this year is I tilled this really early. I kept it sprayed with Roundup and 2,4-D. And then when we got into almost planting time, about 10 days before I was gonna plant, somewhere around the beginning of June, we got those huge rains. So before the rains, I went around to all my switchgrass and I sprayed only simazine so that it got activated into the soil and it got really hot. And then over the next week, there was definitely stuff that germinated that would have come if I tried to spray Roundup and Liberty and my simazine. There would have been stuff that it killed and stuff that still came up because that simazine wasn't activated yet. So there was no overlap. The simazine got activated, more stuff germinated and came up before it got activated. And then 3 days before I planted the switch, I hit it with Roundup and Liberty. And then it rained again, and as soon as it was dry enough where you could kind of see wet spots, but it was crusted over enough so that the drill wouldn't pick up mud. I literally tried it once and it was a little too wet still. And the next day I got out there and it just barely went, but man, it just drilled it right into moisture. It put it in there perfect. And now, you know, we're very, very weed free, and I can row. Every one of these rows is just solid switchgrass at 6 pounds per acre. And I love, love, love planting switchgrass that way. So I call this the Showerhouse field. There used to be a Showerhouse out there, and there's lots of, like right here in the corn where the corn's kind of weak, there was a gravel road that came through here. We got a water hydrant over here, and we trenched all this in. Obviously this is a cattle water, and then that is an irrigation valve. So it's 2-inch pipe, and I got a shut off under that bigger pipe at 4-inch. And basically what'll happen here is this field goes and it winds way back in there. There's several more acres, but this year I'm gonna use that as a log landing. So I haven't planted anything but this section. So eventually that'll all be, you know, perennial green. So it'll be alfalfas and clovers all the way out through there. And then right here will be a retractable hose that'll sit here in my fence that I keep sprayed. And I'll pull that hose out in the center here, and it'll spray about a half-acre circle. We'll pivot, and that's where my fall plot will be. So again, same old story, majority perennial green to beat the heat. Standing grain, this is the biggest area I have within an electric fence. I think it's like 2 acres. I have a half-acre of soybeans out in the middle of it. Next year, I'm gonna work with an agronomist, and I'm gonna try and pump the fertilizer to the corn as hard as I can to get the most bushels per acre. Like this year I shot for like 150 bushels with the fertilizer, but next year I'm gonna try and get as much bushel per the acre and do less corn and some more beans in all the plots. So I'm gonna end up with the same yield of corn, but I'm gonna add beans And instead of doing the beans on 7-inch rows, within the corn, I'm gonna do it on 30-inch rows, planted north and south. And that way I can get a lot of sunlight in there early and overseed, you know, brassicas and try and get a carpet of brassicas out there in those wide rows. It's hard to do the wide rows outside of an electric fence because the deer just go down through there and mow them. So that's kind of my plan for next year, but I see you. So down the hill from the Showerhouse field here is a field we call the Mushroom, and it's basically a couple acre perennial green clover plot down there. And we're gonna take some of the debris from when they cleared it out and spread it out and make a wall of brush, and then have a blind on each end probably. It's gonna be wicked in the rut down there. Just a huge scent concentrator in the middle of gigantic timber. So I'm also gonna perch a blind up here. I got a spot on a knob. I'm gonna perch a blind for like a gun season where I can just go in here a little ways. Actually, I'll come in from there so I don't affect these deer, but I can come around the corner and get in this blind, and I'm sitting like, you know, 40, 50 feet above the field, and I can shoot the whole field, a little sneak attack action. So I planted, these are clear field sunflowers, and I just planted like 1/10 of an acre right up against the lawn for my wife. And, you know, we're gonna be renting this place eventually as like a wedding venue or you know, corporate, whatever, and I just thought it'd be pretty to have the sunflowers against the yard. So I actually threw these in my corn planter. They were size 2, so they will meter right through your corn planter, and they did really good, and you can spray IMOX on these. So I did it narrow enough, so I just mix up like extra water, like 5 gallons to the acre in the IMOX, and just drive right around here with the wand and just keep doing laps until you're out of water. And then you don't break the sunflowers, and it worked really well. And there was a wheat screen here last year, like Egyptian wheat or something like that, and there's a bunch of volunteer wheat, so I've been going out there some nights with a little cleft of them in a backpack and just touching them and killing that crap out of there. But that was my first time planting sunflowers, so I sprayed dual down as a residual in the beginning, and then the IMOX. So the main lodge is right here, and right now we're doing the water main extension, which is the mess coming down the road. And so basically I'm putting the houses and the meter from a new house on city water. I'm taking this entire system off city water and I'm putting it back on the well so I can use this well water to irrigate with and different things. And so there's a well over here and there's a well over here, both about 100 yards. And they're gonna tee over and hit the main line right here. In between where they both hit the line will be a curb cock. And when you shut that off, this well is going to feed this wing of the farm as a zone, and that well is going to feed that wing of the farm as a zone. And there's one more well. When you turn off another valve over there, it'll feed another wing as a zone. So there'll be able to be 3 basically zones of irrigation going at one time. And they all have valves, timer valves on them that'll come on and off however I set them. So we're over here west of the lodge. This is a long, narrow, snaky field. So the center kind of opening is the corn, and you know, very important to fence it in because it would never make it back here. And down that way east, there's an alfalfa field, and it has 2 water hydrants, and those water hydrants will eventually feed 2 smaller pivots than one of the bigger ones that the 2-inch pipe will run. And then there's another spigot here which will go out to my blind from my little redneck transmission cooler air conditioning. And then everything west of the corn here is all beautiful lush clover. And then of course we got this last water tank, and I'll end up putting trichoids in here. But again, lots of perennial green, corn. And next year I'd like to add some beans in with the corn, a little section of it, and try and get higher yield by fertilizing more on the corn that is out here. And then also down there by the alfalfa, you'll see that big dead dirt area. That's all planted switch all the way out to the beans by my house. The reason I did the beans by my house this year is because I knew I was going to need a trench across there for the water system. And rather than destroy that expensive switch, it's hard to get going. I just planted that in beans, and enough of the field and switch, because that switch is my egress. I'm going to egress out through that switch, so they can tear up the beans. And then next year I'll just add more switch to go where the beans are out there now. So this happens to be one of the greatest rut funnels of all time. So we got a ditch right here that starts. Okay, this is the driveway right here, and the ditch starts right here, and it goes really steep, and it goes all the way to basically the yard at the lodge at my house. So playing off of that ditch and that funnel that starts from here and goes north, I laid out this corn. I originally was just going to have it back there, but I ended up turning the electric fence and bringing the corn this way so that I could use it to funnel and basically create the spot where we come in and out of the tractors. Plus, I just opened up another spot for them to go through there, and that's because we're going to trench power. I just brought power down a pole over here, and we're going to trench power through and around to the original well that was on the camp, because that line comes right through here, and the original well went right around the corner and back there. Well, now it goes that way too from the ranger house, which is where it gets the county water, but we're going to shut all that down. So there'll be right here, we're going to dig up, and we trench 900 feet out there to the back alfalfa field, and right here will be a valve. So when I shut this valve off, that well will only go that way and supply water back there. I'm also going to have another 2-inch quick connect valve for another pivot. So right out here, this will be some type of food, and it'll have a fall plot circle out in the middle of it. Across the road, that entire field is all going to be switchgrass, and we're going to do the old backpack sprayer trick, and we're going to go through, starting right here, we're going to go through and spray the switchgrass while it's little like it is now, kill it, and then I'm going to do one that way and one down that way to the point. So all three of those will become deer highways, and they all lead right here to the pinch point anyway. So from the entrance of the property, because you got the ranger house, then you have this electric fence, and then the ditch. So from the entrance of the property all the way to my front yard, really the only spot a deer is going to walk, if it's not, being chased or something, is going to be right here. And so there's a double split white oak back there, which is just a gift from the heavens, and that's where the stand is going to go. There's a switchgrass swath here and a switchgrass swath there, and that's just to give some security from the driveway, and give some ingress and egress from that stand. It's going to be so good that I think I might eventually have a box that straddles this electric fence right along my driveway so that I can hunt this with a northwest. Because you're going to be sitting there, and all of a sudden you're just going to see a rack coming through that switchgrass, or you're going to see a deer come out of here and just start toting it all day, every day in the rut. Could be any time of day. This spot will be awesome. There will be many a times where we're driving in and out of this place and see Giants Cross right here. All right, so we're back here in what I call the ranger house field, and you can see these two valves. So this is what, basically one of the sprinklers will sit right here. It's a glorified sprinkler. It's like makes a quarter acre or almost a half acre circle. And so this is a timer and a big 2-inch valve, so I can set the time. That turns it on and off. And basically there'll be one here, and then there'll be a hose reel. I'll probably have a little concrete pad to set all this on, but there'll be a hose reel, and I'll reel out there, and I'll have a second circle. So there's a line right down here, and everything on that side of the line is clover, and everything on this side of the line and then way out around the corner is alfalfa. And then back here behind is our green to grain pinch. There's a cattle tank over there right in the pinch. And then I pushed off a flat spot for the blind. Northwest wind, thermals pull down into the hole. Perfect egress out the back, down the ditch, back up around the back, and right into the ranger house yard. So this is very nice. So this is the entrance to the place. You can see where they've dug up at the water and done this started this main line extension. Unfortunately through my freshly planted switchgrass, but I can fix that next year. Got this big, huge hand-hewn barn beam. It's gonna go across the road there. I'm gonna use like some rusty I-beams, I think, to hold the hand-hewn beam up, and it's gonna be cool. And then over here is the Ranger house. We've been, I say we, Will Crank and Brian McNeff have been remodeling, new roof, and we put some battens on the old siding, modernized it, and painted it. It looks really good. So we'll bring you in there one of these days, but that project's been going on. And all right, so this is a really cool plot. Without lake access, this thing would be impossible to get to. You just blow everything up trying to get back here. So there was an existing clover. This actually was all clover. It looked really good. This is what it was. It was like the only spot on the farm that had existing clover. I sprayed it the other day with Select and or clethodim and some crop oil, and I'm gonna wait a few more days, and then there wasn't a whole lot of grass. I'm gonna come back and hit all this broadleaf with some Buterac. But we're about to log. The blind's gonna go right here, and we got the corn. West winds blow that way. I'm gonna come up with the boat. I'm gonna get out, come up the hill. I'm gonna come right around the edge of the corn, get in the blind, and I'm gonna leave the same way. I'll leave enough corn to screen my exit. And from right in, there's all these, the lake wraps around, goes all the way down in here. There's all these series of south-facing points all the way down this green here. So I got that all marked. I'm gonna hammer all that and make a giant bedroom. And then I planted beans down there. I really just kind of threw them in some rough ground. Didn't expect a whole lot because that's gonna be a log landing, so a lot of that's gonna get messed up. And there's some crabapple trees over here that I cleaned up, and there's already a bunch of deer sign down around them. I think they've been going to the ones in my yard like crazy, just nipping all the leaves off and everything. So I think next year I'm gonna do probably alfalfa down through there. Maybe some other candy, I don't know, but probably alfalfa after the logging project's done. But yeah, dominant winds, perfect access in the lake. We're gonna get all these deer to pour up in here, log on both sides, and we're gonna drag them down through here into this corn. All right, so that's a little update and tour of what's been going on here at the Wildwood Girl Scout camp. We got moved in last week, and it's been awesome just watching all the deer crossing the yard and stuff. So yeah, we're gonna let everything grow. Everything's in really good shape right now, and in control, all the weeds and everything. So look forward to letting everything grow and taking you guys for another tour here in a couple months. If you haven't heard, we have a brand new Discord server. It's the Whitetail Group Discord server. It's basically like a forum style private chat room. There's so much value in there to help you guys and help one another. There's general discussions, there's how-tos, there's so much in there. We've got a video here that breaks it all down, and then there's a link in the description that will show you how to download the Discord and get in there. But I think once you get in there, you're gonna see a ton of value, and it's just an awesome, no drama place for everybody to communicate and help one another as whitetail deer hunters and land managers. See you in there. Thanks, guys.